Deku's finally returned to UA with the help of Class 1A, but there is a little bit of resistance since the regular city folk know about One for All and All for One's insistence on getting that quirk, potentially being able to attack UA, but someone is standing up for him, and it's going to be Ochako, who actually understands the plight that he went through. And not to mention, we see a little bit of her backstory and her motivations as she gives a very compelling speech to the rest of the townsfolk. Hello everyone, welcome to All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet. Hope you're enjoying your day at the Geek Way, and I want to talk about A Child's Insistence, the new chapter of My Hero Academia. So at the beginning of this chapter, we see it focused on Uraraka in the past as a child, while her parents are watching a hero take down a villain. And then we have that juxtaposed with the modern day, where they're more frightful and they're a little bit more fearful of everything going on. And it's a narration of Ochako says, "My parents always had an exhausted look on their faces, and I hated that. When I witnessed heroes in action, my gaze often wandered to the people watching them instead." So this is a very interesting juxtaposition because you see all of the city folk, they do not have happy looks on their face. They're more fearful, if anything. In fact, one of the dudes who will yell out a little bit later is very fearful as well. But we see Ochako on the roof of 1A, I think at the dorms, if I remember right. And then we panel back to Izuku. We're back at Izuku, and it looks like he's looking out into the crowd as well. And the crowd's noticing, yeah, he's all beaten up. He looks extremely frail. And then the fox girl that Deku saved earlier, the one who was about to be attacked by vigilantes just for looking different, since My Hero Academia, a lot of mutation quirks are actually feared upon because they look like villains. Well, this girl says, "He was fighting. Even after he saved me, he just kept fighting." And then the dude, who looks fearful, he says, "The hell are you talking about? Don't tell me that you want us to be covered in mud and grime as well." Kind of a weird reaction, but also notice, if you read this chapter, this guy is wearing an All Might t-shirt. So he's also been affected by heroes and the downfall of heroes, but still, there's part of that symbol of peace that he's wearing on his shirt, quite literally. So this could be kind of symbolic as to that a symbol of peace is still there, or there's hope for a symbol of peace, or maybe it's nostalgia, but not quite sure. I'd have to find out in future chapters to quite understand why he's wearing the shirt, but I can tell you Horikoshi's doing this intentionally. Well, Uraraka replies to him, and she says, "The only ones who will shoulder any burdens will be us heroes," which, that's why I was just like, why is this guy talking about having grime all over him? She didn't ask anyone to fight, that it was the fault of the heroes. She says, "We'll pay you all back with your blood and sweat, so please just give us time." And you'll see a panel where it's Deku and Bakugo standing next to each other. So, of all the heroes that want to save the rest of society, it's going to be Deku, of course, like that's nothing new. But also Bakugo, since they're rivals, but they're also motivators to each other. They're two sides of the same coin, as you could probably say. But also, it's very intentional. At the class of 1A, you have Midnight in the corner over here. And then we have other panels focusing on class 1A. So you have one with Kirishima, Mina, Tsuyu, and Denki. And also Ida is standing right next to Deku. And he says, "Midoriya-kun, Uraraka-san is fighting too, to make sure that you and everyone else can smile." So I didn't realize until right now that I'm talking about this chapter that this is Ida saying that part. But you'll see a little bit of narration in between. It's like a little black line on one of the pages. It says, "I love seeing people's happy faces." And this is where Deku's back, my friends. My favorite character. I'm not kidding. He is my favorite character, 100%. Deku is back because tears are starting in his eyes. I don't give a crap what people say. "Oh, he's a crybaby." Man, he is one with his emotions, and when he's feeling good, or when he's feeling hopeful, or if he's feeling depressed, like, he's willing to cry. Like, this dude is a dude. I don't care what people say. Deku is my favorite anime character. I will fight anyone I won't actually fight anyone. I just wanted to express that. But anyway, Deku starts to cry as he's exclaiming Uraraka's name. And Uraraka says, as of right now, with regards to your safety, we're sorry that we cannot guarantee it. We're just as frightened as you. Everyone here is under the same circumstances. And you'll see in part of one of the panels, it's Uraraka's narration. It says, he frantically went around saving people while just barely hanging in there. I want people to see and understand what he's doing for them. So this is Horikoshi saying, yeah, Uraraka understands Deku, the plight that he's willing to go through. Now, remember when they were doing the entrance exam and the giant faux villain, came in. He was the one who rushed in, jumped, and punched it in the face while all his bones were broken. There is a connection between Uraraka and Deku. I'm not talking romantically. I don't care about the shipping stuff. I'll let Horikoshi do what he wants to do with the story. I think a lot of shipping is kind of cringe, to be honest with you. But I'm not a teenager anymore. And a lot of teenagers do that, so good for them. But there is a connection between them in terms of a mutual understanding and by far a mutual respect, to say the very least. She knows that Deku went out there fighting villains and he was exhausted. Now remember, before Class 1A brought him back, Deku was about to collapse in front of an assassin. They basically saved his life. Bakugo did. But he still kept on fighting for everyone else. Well, we have the next page. It says, when a hero is in pain, and we'll see a panel. It has Katsuki, it has Izuku, it has Ida, and then we see Best Jeanist, Present Mike. We see Aizawa in the hospital sitting on his bed and his back is facing toward us. So Aizawa went through a lot of pain to rescue Deku, rescue heroes, take down villains. He cut off his own leg as it was being decayed. Aizawa was in a lot of pain. But this next panel I really enjoy because it's a picture of Hawks and Shoto and Endeavor in the background wearing a trench coat and a hat. And with the narration saying when a hero is in pain, you see it's raining outside. And I think this is very intentional from Horikoshi, because you'll see under Hawks' right eye, it's like rainwater going down, but it's meant to represent tears, as opposed to Todoroki, where the same thing is happening in more of a straight line where his scar is at, but it looks like he's crying and like he's in a lot of pain. But he also has this facial expression of being in pain. And then the next panel, I love this one. And it says, when heroes are in pain, ... And it closes up on Endeavor's face. He's not in tears. He's just very, for lack of a better word, stoic in his expression. Of all the heroes, Endeavor has to be in some incredible pain. Not because he brought about pain in the past, but even now, the public knows about the pain that he's brought, exclusively with his son, Dabi, or Toya Todoroki. And it's just such an excellently drawn panel. The facial expressions, it's just incredible. It really is. Because you can see all the pain that Endeavor is feeling, all the while being stoic and still being strong, still, when I'm looking at it now, being motivated and being willing to look forward and have a better future. That's what I see when I look at this. I'm curious to see how Horikoshi expands all of this, because he has said before, Ochako is going to be one of the most important points, or a very important point, within this next arc. Moving on. We're back into the past where where a crowd is cheering on the heroes, and Ochako is just a little girl. It says it's her dad saying, Ochako, where are you looking? The heroes are over there. So she's looking at the crowd, seeing everyone start smiling. And the crowd's going like, oh, go get him, Eel Boy. So I guess there's a hero in the past named Eel Boy, and they're all cheering him on. Ochako looks at Eel Boy, and he's like super like, yeah, super smiley. And Ochako is just incredibly happy. It's that stereotypical Japanese thing where it's like an excessive amount of happiness and like stuff's coming out of their nostrils, coming out of their mouths. And it says, we have to save the heroes. So we understand this from her motivations that she's talked about in the past, but she has been a hero that wants to help heroes. Like, she is also a rescue hero, but it's not just for the populace and not just for the public, but it's also for the other heroes. So back when Class 1A was fighting with Deku, it was a very, when I say one-sided battle, the only ones that were putting up a fight were Class 1A. Deku was trying to run away, but they had their like, oh, Deku, you've influenced me in this way. Remember that time we did the thing and you were like, I'm a good person? And he was like, yeah, but no. Well, Ochako was a lot more quiet. But now this is her moment to shine. And basically, while she's making a broad statement, she's also directing her words with Deku in mind. This is how I interpret this. Could be incorrect, but this is how I interpret it. And she continues, she says, that's why I'm asking for your full cooperation, so that tomorrow we can all smile together. And then we have a little flashback, and it's a picture of Himiko Toga. And the panel directly after that is Ochako with fear in her eyes. Like, this is kind of her motivation, a part of her motivation in trying to compel the audience to let Deku stay and recover and help fight, because Toga has directly affected her, and this happened during the Hero War when Toga pulled her aside, Ochako aside, excuse me. So she gets a little bit reactionary, not negative reactionary, but more of like oh no, I have to like really get this message across. And she says, with everyone's help, please give him time to rest and recuperate. Is that too much to ask? And it kind of panels on the crowd. You see Izuku's mom tearing up, and it's also, I didn't realize this from the last chapter, but the person standing with Izuku's mom is Bakugo's mom. And it's very interesting because you get the friendship dynamic that they both have. Like, they're friends too. I know Deku and Katsuki had a little rivalry, and there was a little bit of resentment as they grew up. But the way that they're standing, when you're looking at the page, and remember when I mentioned that Bakugo is standing next to Deku, when you're looking at the page, Bakugo's on the right-hand side, Deku's on the left-hand side. And it's the same with this. Bakugo's mom's on the right side, Deku's mom is on the left side. The speech continues. She says, Izuku Midoriya is trying to carry the burden of his power on his own. He's got a lot more to learn, but he's just an ordinary high schooler. True! I mean, he's carried a lot of burdens on his own, like rescuing Eri, rescuing Kota, rescuing Ochako, rescuing his friends. Like, he puts a lot on the line, but he's also just being a teenager, just doing what he thinks is right. Like, he has a lot of growing up to do, and she's 100% right. But I like seeing this too, because you see Deku all grimy, but he's also like, he's tearing up a little bit more. He hasn't completely broken down. It's the process of the tears building up. Now, the same guy with the All Might shirt in the crowd, he says, but, and then Ochako, it looks like she's taking in a breath, and she yells, let him, and then you'll see she's like about to yell more, and you'll see a lot of panels that are from Ochako's past. Like, this is your, and Deku is about to break down crying. So she's saying, let him stay here. And she's developed tears in her eyes too. It's very interesting. I like the use of juxtaposition from the past as well as into the modern day, because you really get a good glimpse of what the heroes are thinking about and how they've really motivated each other from the beginning of the series. Deku is breaking down on the ground, and I'm assuming this is narration with Deku, and it says, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. This is on one panel, and then the end of the panel on the same page, but you also see in between, it's a look at the past of when when Izuku is just like about to fall into his face with his middle school uniform, and she grabs him, makes him float, and get him back on his feet. And it's the dialogue, and it says, well, it's a bad omen if you trip and fall over. And so Ochako, like, with her hands together, smiling and all that stuff at Deku. But then, as she's smiling, the next panel is her, like, yelling very passionately and very much trying to get a message across to a whole slew of people. And again, it's using this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. But then it's going to switch up a little bit by the end of the chapter, but I'll get to that. Then you have a full page spread, and it says, at the Hero Academy, please. So she says, please let him stay at the Hero Academy, please. Now, I read another version. It's called the Bean version. I guess there's another translator that's referred to as Bean. And I liked the writing in that one. I can't read Japanese. I can't read hiragana. I can't read katakana. I can read like one letter in katakana, but neither here nor there. But in that one, instead, it has like, please let him stay. And then on the full page spread is at his Hero Academia. And I'm like, oh man, getting me all the tears. My water quirk in my eyes starting to work really well. And I thought that one was a lot better. Well, then we see Deku is broken down. He is impassioned by his words. He feels his words, and Horikoshi isn't telling us how he feels. And that's a sign of any great artist, any great mangaka especially. Well, any great artist. Being able to deliver a message through the picture alone. And we see Deku is very impassioned by these words. Like, these have hit him to the core. And he is in tears, which is nothing new, but if you compare other times when he's cried, you understand the context of it. Like, this is pretty big. Well, next panel, we see the Fox Girl running toward Deku throughout the crowd. And we start to get a close-up of Nezu, which is very interesting. So first it's Nezu, and then you see the crowd. You see the guy with the All Might shirt, but you also see the guy, he has like the 3 stars. He has 2 stars on each side of his head and 1 on top of his head. He was the one, I think, either the first chapter and the first episode of the anime, where he says like, oh, you're one of those fanboys, that guy. He's there, but going back to Nezu, it starts to get closer on Nezu, and it looks like he's in shock, and there's a quote next to it that says, one more step. Now, I don't know if you remember the UA Trader thing. There's been a lot of theories going out online about Nezu being the traitor in UA. If this is true, like, I like Nezu, so I'm not a fan of him being the traitor of UA. But it's a possibility, and I think Horikoshi's writing is kind of alluding to that being a possibility. It says one more step, and it's specifically next to Nezu. We'll see. Then we have another panel, and I don't know who's talking in this one, but it says, humanity struggles to make progress down its rocky path. And then we see Ragdoll, who was just with Kota in the previous chapter, she says like, hey, Wet, and Kota is running toward Midoriya. And then we see a middle panel, and it's reflecting back to when Kota decided to get new shoes. And this was after the training camp incident. And it's one of the Wild Wild Pussycats. I can't remember all their names. I just remember Ragdoll. I apologize, but I think it's the one who's Kota's cousin. But she says, oh, what should we get? That one. I really want that one. It's pointing at the red pair of shoes that are identical to what Deku had. And then it says, I want a red one. And it shows when Kota is behind Izuku, and Muscular has just been taken down when Deku uses one for all at 1,000,000%, which is exaggerated. Horikoshi confirmed this is exaggerated. But it's from a back point of view, and it's a scene from the past. And the way that Horikoshi does this, his use of shadow, as well as like kind of the grayscale, like obviously mangas are typically in grayscale, but like it's a deliberately darker image because he wants this to stand out. And he's showing that this like with this use of imagery, this is a huge motivator for the character of Kota. And this is why Kota is running toward Midoriya. Remember, Midoriya is his hero. And Kota is running toward him with tears in his eyes. I'm not going to lie, like, my water quirk was working when I read this. And then the final panel, and it's one full page. It says, "This is the story of how we all became the greatest heroes." So this is a narrative change from Horikoshi. Now you see Kota is trying to comfort Midoriya running there, and you see the Fox Girl is there with tears. And the final words is, "One step at a time, the world begins to change." So the narrative is changing, not to mention the world of My Hero Academia and how we understand it is probably going to change. We'll have to find out in future chapters. It's just kind of a prediction. I do kind of wish Eri ran outside, not gonna lie, because we spent a lot of time with her, but we did spend time with Kota beforehand. So either way, it has that emotional impact that it's supposed to have. It's a good end to the chapter. I'm really curious to see what happens in the next chapter. I want to see what Horikoshi does with this. I say this all the time when I read the chapters. His art and his style is just, it's been top notch recently. Like the amount of dedication, the amount of work that he's put into it. Like, I hate waiting 2 weeks and I hate waiting 1 week. But you know, it takes time to make a manga, so can't blame him for that. But the amount of artwork and the amount of detail that he puts into these chapters, the amount of symbolism and imagery, a lot of subtext and allusions that he puts into the chapters, like you could tell he very much cares about his own creation, which is a good thing, but it's been top notch recently, and I do think Horikoshi is one of the better mangakas we've had in many years. But that's the end of the chapter. I really enjoyed this chapter. There wasn't much in terms of action, but there was a lot in terms of character development, characterization, how we understand the characters. We get a better look at Chaco. And Midoriya's back. Like, I'm super stoked about that. Midoriya is back. Now, granted, he's going to probably be a little bit more jaded. He's going to be, like, he is a growing character. He is growing as a character. But we still got our good boy at the core. So, good chapter overall. In the meantime, everyone, I'll end the video here. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. Give the video a like. If you're really generous, give it a share. Just kind of get the idea spread out there. The YouTube algorithm is very complicated. But mainly, consider subscribing. I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of November. We'll see if that happens. I'm at a whopping 22 right now. So, any help, I kid you not, it's greatly appreciated, especially if you made it this far. Thank you so incredibly much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like, I really do. It's going to make my water quirk activate again. In the meantime, please continue to enjoy your day the geek way. Duh. I'll see you in the next video.